Hi friends, I'm Felicia. Welcome here. It's been a while. Yeah. So I had, the best of intentions. I was gonna get all caught up on all my videos and everything and telling you about all the books, and then I was gonna just like be making content all the time. And then, so that was in like beginning of October, and then I got sick. And then it took forever for my voice to be strong enough to actually talk. And then I got sick again. And then it's been Christmas and I've been busy. So, but I have a voice now. I can speak to you for quite a while without coughing, which is optimal because, yeah, I have a lot of books to talk about. And I noticed that there was a fuzz on my sock. So, and I have so many books, and you know what? It's just gonna be one video. There will be timestamps, and if you want to jump around, you can, and I'll try to be succinct, but no promises. So, it's December 29th today, so Merry Christmas, belatedly. But it is still in the 12 days of Christmas, because December 25th is the first day of Christmas, not the last day. But anyways, so that's just my little soapbox. My office is terrible. You want to see? There's a pile of junk I need to deal with. That's the thing I took out of my yarn cart. Took it out of the living room to make room for the Christmas tree. So here we are. Okay. And like some of these books I read in summertime, so I really don't remember too much. Or we'll see how my memory is about them. So anyways. So the first book, and one of my favorite books of the year, is Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. She's my favorite living author. I think I can say that. My favorite living fiction author. How many caveats do I need to put on there? So this is a sci-fi novel, follows 3 different perspectives in different time periods. One of them is in like our past, and then 2 of them are in our future. And of course, the way that she can take many different storylines and characters and kind of tie them all together in all of these situations and then bring them all together at the end. I just love that about her books. Loved it. If you haven't read any of her books, you don't need to read them in order, but I would recommend at least reading Station 11 and The Glass Hotel before reading this one, just for the fact that there are like side characters in those books that we kind of follow in this book. So it's just, you don't need to, but I would, because then you get those references. I just feel like, I gotta talk so fast. Okay. Do you like my mug? Erin gave me this mug for my birthday last year. Erin, my book friend. And I love it. Okay. Then I listened to an audio, the Wolf by Wolf duology by Ryan Groden, which is Wolf by Wolf and Blood for Blood. The audiobooks were good. The storyline is, it's set in an alternate past where the Axis forces won World War II, and so they are in control, and we're set in 1956, and we're following and it also has a touch of like sci-fi, because we're following our main character who was in the concentration camps, and she was experimented on, and was, as a result of the experiments, she has the ability to shapeshift, so she can change the way she looks and her voice. And so she is impersonating a racer in this motorcycle race that they have every year, that is across basically the whole German Empire. And the winner gets to meet Hitler, and so her goal is to win the race and meet Hitler and kill him. So that's the setup, and I really enjoyed it. I liked the first book more than the second book, but they were both still really good, and as far as YA goes, it didn't really feel necessarily YA, so it was good. I liked it. Okay, The next book, The Book of Stranger Things by Michelle Faber. I had this book on my TBR for such a long time, and I thought I was going to love it. So the premise of this is the main character is he's some kind of priest or pastor, and he is chosen to be a missionary to the first planet that is found with intelligent sentient life. So he goes to it's not a military base, but like the Space Force base, you know what I mean? That's on the planet. And then he is a missionary to the natives there. And like, I just really thought I was going to like it. And I liked the writing. What I liked about it was that it kind of took faith elements, and it's kind of like this light sci-fi. You don't really have to understand the technology. It's just about like the setting. And it also focuses on his marriage to his wife B, and she's left behind at home, and through her her emails to him, you get the sense that the world is just falling apart, like he escaped the apocalypse basically. And so he's really struggling with staying on the planet and fulfilling his purpose there, and his wife that's at home who is struggling and not being with her. And I thought, like I said, I thought I would like it, and I was enjoying it, but then it started to get too long and repetitive, and then the ending was gut-wrenching. And apparently Michelle Faber set out to write like the saddest book ever, and he totally succeeded. I was so depressed after I finished this, and because it's 500 pages, and so I was like, I could have handled it if it was like 100 pages less, which is about how repetitive it felt too. So read it if you're curious, but dang, it's sad. So there's that. Okay. I reread The Jane Austen Project by Kathleen A. Flynn, which is a book that I enjoy. I don't think it's not very popular, and popular, and it doesn't have a lot of reviews, I think. No, it's mixed reviews is what I meant to say. I'm trying to talk too fast, guys. I'm so sorry. So it is someone from our future travels to the past to meet Jane Austen and procure a manuscript that was destroyed or unfinished, and also letters between her and her sister Cassandra that were destroyed. And so we were just following them on that mission, and I just really like this. You can tell, I felt like you can tell that the author just loves Jane Austen, so I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it if you like sci-fi and Jane Austen. Then I read from the library and returned ages ago, Upgrade by Blake Crouch. Love Blake Crouch. So Upgrade, I will say, not my favorite out of the three other books of his. No, out of the three total books that I've read of his. I did like Dark Matter and Recursion a bit more, but I did still really enjoy it. You know, I didn't even know anything going into it, but Upgrade implies that basically there's someone trying to upgrade the human race. So that is kind of our basic premise. And I thought it was really entertaining, and yeah, Blake Crouch always goes there. Like, you don't know if he's gonna go there, and then he goes there. So I thought it was really good. Okay, last for sci-fi, I listened to the audiobook for The Last Cuentista by Donna Barba Higuera. This is a middle grade book about a girl who is, her and her family are on a spaceship that leaves Earth for a new planet, and they're going to be put to sleep during the journey and then be woken up when they get there. And surprise, surprise, she wakes up and her family doesn't, and then she has to figure out what's going on and stuff. I've read quite a few books that have like kind of this basic premise theme, and I did like it for a middle grade book. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, young me would have enjoyed it as a sci-fi. It was good. Okay, fantasy. I read one fantasy book apparently in the last 6 months, and that was The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. So I finally finished the first era of the Mistborn, and I still to this day have so many feelings about it. The ending, the last 100 pages, just had me shook. I was like yelling at Chris. Chris has read this series, so he was just waiting for me to get to these bits and these bits. And then like all of these things that like, I don't know how he does it, but at least for me, Sanderson, he writes these things and I'm like, I feel like that should be significant, but I don't figure it out. And then when he reveals it, it's like, oh my word, that is so obvious. How did I not figure it out? But that's amazing. So we had like all of these little reveals, and then the ending, just my brain exploded. It still is exploded, like it's not there. So I loved it. It was amazing. And I'm really excited to read more Sanderson. I have the next 3 books of the Wax and Wane cycle. I have those, or like, yeah, the first 3 books of that on my Kindle. But then we also have, what's the first book of the Stormlight Archives? We have that one too. And I don't know which one I want to read. If I want to keep going with like Mistborn, or if I want to start the Stormlight Archives. So if you have an opinion, let me know. But yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. Okay, so now we're talking about mysteries. I listened to 3 Nancy Drew books on audio, narrated by Laura Linney. So those were books 4, 5, and 6. The Mystery at the Lilac Inn, The Secret of Shadow Ranch, and The Secret of Redgate Farm. And I have The Mystery at Lilac Inn and The Secret of Redgate Farm. I think probably this one was my favorite, because there was a cult element to it, and I like that. Nancy Drew is just always a great time, revisit to my childhood, and I did enjoy them, but I had to stop because reading so many, like listening to so many in a row, was like, okay, I get it. Nancy Drew is perfect. She's a perfect teenager. But then I listened to the audiobook for And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. The audiobook is narrated by Dan Stevens, so of course it's amazing. And at the time I really just wanted to listen to Dan Stevens narrate something, so I picked that one. But I was also in the mood for a mystery, and like it is just one of the best books. And I've only read like 2 Agatha Christie books, and I would like to read more, but I don't know where to go. Help me, please. Yeah, phenomenal story. Like, it's just amazing. So, And Then There Were None. Do it. Okay, then I read 2 books by Alice Feeney. So I read her new book, Daisy Darker, which is a mystery. Kind of, it very, very much is inspired by And Then There Were None. And now actually I don't remember which order I read them. I think I read Daisy Darker second. But anyways, so very much similar premise, that there's a group of people at a house that's secluded, like you can't get there when the tide is out. And it's her and her family, and then there's conflict and people start dying, and so they have to figure out what's going on. So I thought it was good. Yeah, it was entertaining, and I think it's set on Halloween, so I would recommend it for Halloween time. And then I listened to the audiobook for Rock, Paper, Scissors. And that was a reread. It's narrated by Richard Armitage, and I forget the woman's name, but it has two narrators. Richard Armitage, Dan Stevens. I'll listen to anything that they narrate. They're the best. But yes, Rock, Paper, Scissors, a couple that's in turmoil in their marriage. They go to a secluded cabin in Scotland as kind of like a last ditch effort to save their marriage. And, you know, creepy things happen. And they're trying to figure out like who even sent them there. Like they just won this, you know, getaway. They don't even know why. And then like things are happening and they're like, who's messing with us? Or is it ghosts? So that's that one. I really enjoyed that one too. And reading it the second time definitely picked up on like things that I remembered from the first time. And like picking up on those hints throughout the book is always it's fun for me. I like that. Yeah. Hello, bangs. I could use a haircut. These bangs are very long. And I read it. The reason I read it again was I read it with my book club, and they hadn't read it yet before. And one of the girls hadn't finished the book, but she still came to the meeting. So then the rest of us were telling her like what happens, and her reactions to the reveals as we told her was just priceless. It was so funny. So I recommend reading it with someone that's not going to finish it and then telling them the twist so that you can see their reaction. I don't know. It was funny. I read a lot of historical fiction, and most of it was Melanie Dickerson. So I read 6 books in the Hagenheim series by Melanie Dickerson, which is it's fairy tale retellings following people that live in this one village, city, town. I don't know how big it is. And it's set in the 1400s in Germany, I think. Anyways, so I read The Healer's Apprentice, which is, oh shoot, that's Sleeping Beauty retelling. Then I read The Merchant's Daughter, which was Beauty and the Beast retelling. The Fairest Beauty, which was Cinderella. The Captive Maiden. No, The Fairest Beauty was Snow White. The Captive Maiden was Cinderella. The Princess Spy was... oh, shoot. And then The Golden Braid was Rapunzel. Who's the Princess Spy? The Princess and the Frog. There we go. Got it. So those are just completely comfort reads for me. Like they're YA, I think, but like the characters are like 19 and then the guy's always like 24 and the girl's always like 19. So I don't know, but whatever. So new adult, but they're clean romances. So anyways, I just love them and like the formula is great. There's always, you know, one of them will get hurt and then the other one has to nurse them and then they get captured and then they escape and then captured again and then beat the bad guy. But it's always fun and very nice for when the brain is anxiety mode, you know? Next historical fiction is A Modest Independence by Mimi Matthews. Have you guys missed this mouth that doesn't work? Anyways, so that one is book 2 in the Parish Orphans of Devon series. And we follow a girl who's trying to find her best friend's brother and her best friend's lawyer. So they're going together to India to find him. So they have to pose as brother and sister. I don't know why they didn't pose as a couple, but whatever. So, you know, in the historical times when that was frowned upon, an unmarried man and woman traveling together, you know. Anyways, I didn't like that one as much as I liked the first book in that series, but it was still enjoyable. The first one was A Marriage of Convenience. You guys know how I feel about A Marriage of Convenience. If you don't, love that trope. It's one of my favorite romance tropes. Then I read The Circus Train by Amita Parikh. And this is set during the onset of World War II. And we follow we follow a group of people that are in part of a traveling circus. And they have a train, you know? That's how they travel around with their circus. This is a debut novel, and for the most part I thought it was really good. I found that at the beginning it felt like it was setting up to be very much like the Night Circus with the magical realism, but then it just wasn't there, and then it was just like a regular historical fiction. So that was interesting. Like there were just like a couple of scenes that were like, is this gonna be a magical realism? And then it wasn't. But I still really enjoyed it. For a debut novel, it was really well written. The pacing was pretty good. So, and I liked the characters. So I would recommend this if you like historical fiction. It was good. Okay, and then last historical fiction was a Christmas book, and it was The Christmas Bargain by Shanna Hatfield. That was a book I got for free on my Kindle probably like 8 years ago or something. I don't know, long time ago. And I finally read it and I really enjoyed it. Cause guess why? Merge of convenience. So the setup is weird. But basically the guy is a banker and he goes to this guy who owes him a tremendous loan. And the guy's like, well, I don't have money. So I'll sell you my daughter. Like, I'll give you my daughter and then we'll call it even. And the guy's like, no. And then the guy was like, okay, fine. Then I'll sell her to this really even worse guy in town. And then I'll give you the money from that. And so the banker guy is like, well, which is worse for the girl, to get married to that really crappy guy, to stay with her dad, or maybe she can come live with me and be my wife and be my housekeeper. She's a good cook. She can cook for me. So so it's kind of like he's the least of all the evils. So he takes her and they get married and then she comes to live with him. And then they fall in love. Spoilers. But yeah, so I don't know, I liked it. I did like the characters and the plot for the most part. It wasn't really like really stressful. There were a few moments that were tense, but for the most part it was just like a cozy read and I enjoyed it. So now we're gonna move on to classics. I read a bunch of classics. A bunch. Oh no, I missed a historical fiction. And this is a big deal. I read The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. Over 1,000 pages. Actually, no, mine is like 940 pages. Nope, 60. Anyways, so this is set in like the early 1100s. And it centers around the building of the cathedral, which is what hooked me in. I'm kind of obsessed with cathedrals. And I have a hot take, maybe, on this book. Like, it spans 50 years. And I really thought that I was going to like it. But I don't think that the writing was good enough for what the author was trying to accomplish. I don't think his writing was strong enough. Character development lacking. And there is so much violence towards women in this book that I really don't remember anything else. So that really tainted just the whole book for me. If you do not like to read about sexual assault towards women, do not read this book because it happens so often. And it is described, and yeah, like the main villain character, almost every time he appears after a while of having not seen him, he's gonna assault a woman. And it just happens so often. I was like, I every time he started to show up, I was like, I can't deal with this. So that actually really slowed down my progress of this book. And I know lots of people like this book, and I just really wanted to love it, but there was that. The bad guy, and then like just the way he wrote about women was also just terrible in general. There's a scene that is just the most ridiculous sex scene I've ever read in a book. Ridiculous. Like, he thinks that men are magical. Let's just put it that way. I won't give you details. But I laughed when I read it. It was the most preposterous thing I've ever read. So I wouldn't recommend this book, and I don't intend to read more. So I hope I didn't get too graphic. I do tend to have no filter when it comes to that, so I'm really censoring myself. Pass. I don't know. Read Les Mis. Read The Count of Monte Cristo if you want to read something that's 1,000 pages. I read a bunch of classics. For Jane Austen July, I read Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. Wonderful. Lovely. Yeah. Edward Ferrars is not my favorite. He's, actually, neither of the guys. Colonel Brandon, Edward Ferrars, not my favorite, but still an excellent book. The relationship between the sisters, I really like. Yeah. And I found out after Jane Austen July, I kind of went through a little Dan Stevens phase. It's over now, like I'm back to normal. But I found out that he played in like 2008 in a BBC miniseries. He played Edward Ferrars, and I was like, no one told me this in time to watch it for Jane Austen July. And I still haven't watched it because then it was spooky season when I found that out, so. But I do intend to watch it yet. And maybe he will make me like Edward Ferrars a bit more. I don't know. I listened to the audiobook of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Again, spooky season. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Is it Louis or Lewis? Someone please tell me. I don't know. And I've tried to look it up and I can't figure it out. Maybe it's Lewis. Classic. Audiobook is narrated by Richard Armitage. So, excellent. And there are so many interesting things and implications that you can think about from that book. And I think it is very smart. And I was talking about it with Chris a while ago. I don't remember what my point was. I was comparing it to something else and talking about how Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was superior because, The Picture of Dorian Gray maybe? I think. But anyways. So I like that book. Okay, then look at this. Look at my edition of Frankenstein. Kim from The Paper Traveler totally influenced me to buy this book. Beautiful. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I did listen to the audiobook, narrated by Dan Stevens. And it was actually perfect. And for a lot of the time I did sit down and like read along in this while he was reading it to me. And I love Frankenstein. I love Frankenstein. The first time I read it, apparently didn't love it. I think this is the third time now that I've read it, and it's just amazing. I love it. So, or maybe I was comparing Victor Frankenstein to Dr. Jekyll. Maybe that's why I was talking about it. Oh, Dr. Frankenstein. No, not doctor. Just Victor Frankenstein. He's not a doctor. Frankenstein is so much worse than Dr. Jekyll. Anyways. But I still love this book so much. It's amazing. If you've never read it, I love it. It's one of my favorite classics. Then I listened to the audiobook of Dracula by, what's your name? Bram Stoker. And I listened to the audiobook narrated by Greg Wise and Saskia Reeves. And it's just so interesting to read these books. And I read it like a decade ago when I was still in college, more than a decade, for the first time is when I read it. And it's so interesting to read these books that are such a big part of our cultural existence. And but then to actually go to like the source material and see how it like originally was. And it's just so interesting. And it actually is really funny because it starts off like just like a, like Jonathan Harker is just so dumb. Like it just has no idea what's going on. It's so obvious when you read it now, like from our lens, with like knowing immediately what and who Dracula is, and like all of the vampire lore and myth that we all know. And he just has like no clue. It's so funny. And then you just go through the book and it's like, why does Van Helsing keep giving Lucy, you know, garlic bulbs? It's like, girl, keep that garlic. Don't open your windows. Don't do anything. So it's just entertaining. And I do really like Dracula, but not as much as Frankenstein. Next book, I listened to the audiobook of The Horse and His Boy. Apparently it's hard for me to say. By C.S. Lewis. I am reading, I got a collection of the Narnia books on Audible, and they are in the chronological order, which is not my preferred order. Mine is publication order, but I am just listening to them in the order that they are in that collection because I've read Narnia enough times that I can do it. But just please, always, if you're introducing someone to Narnia, please always do The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first. Please, just always do it. I will die on that soapbox. Okay, I don't remember who the narrator was. It was good. It's not my favorite book in the series, but enjoyable. I listened to the audiobook of The Turn of the Screw. Who's the author? Henry James. And that one is narrated a little bit by Richard Armitage and mostly by Emma Thompson, who is an amazing narrator. But I don't know if it was the book, like the writing, or if it was just I wasn't in the mood. I don't know. I didn't like it at all. And then I watched the adaptation of The Turn of the Screw with Michelle Dockery and Dan Stevens. And which was also weird because Chris and I are watching Downton Abbey, and like for the first time. And so it was weird to see Michelle Dockery and Dan Stevens like in just a completely different thing, but around the same time period. But The Turn of the Screw, I don't know, it was just weird. It didn't, not for me. And then let's finish off the classics category. I read Jane of Lantern Hill by Ellen Montgomery. And guess what? It was delightful. It's about Jane, who lives in Toronto with her mom and her grandma is the worst. And she hates it in Toronto and she hates it in their house. And she doesn't know who her dad is, but she always wishes that she could know him. And then when she's 11, she gets a letter, 11 or 12, she gets a letter from her dad. He wants her to come spend the summer with him in PEI. And so, I mean, you can probably guess, she goes to PEI, loves it, loves her dad, loves her life. So, it's a delightful book. Thoroughly enjoyable. I love Ellen Montgomery forever. Sometimes I get people asking. You can see here too. These are the Tundra editions, and they're illustrated by Ellie Mackay. She's beautiful, beautiful art. And these are, yeah, they're published by Tundra, and they didn't do all of the books, and I don't think they're gonna finish all of the books, but I have most of Ellen Montgomery's books now in these editions. They're beautiful. Contemporary or nonfiction? We'll go for nonfiction first, actually, because there's less. Listen to the audiobook of Boy, Tales from Childhood by Roald Dahl, narrated by, guess who? Dan Stevens. It was entertaining. Entertaining stories from Roald Dahl's childhood, as the title suggests. Yeah. That's all I have to say about that. I listened to the audiobook of The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I have read this before, but then I also have the audiobook narrated by John Green. And there are some stories in there, essays in there that are not in the book. But I wouldn't be able to tell you right now what they are. But yeah, this was one of my favorite books of last year. Is that when it came out last year? Yes. And it's just so interesting because he wrote a lot of it during COVID. Yeah, 2021. Wrote a lot of it during like the onset of COVID and dealing with the pandemic a year later. Now we're 2 years, almost 3 years out from the beginning. And it is just so weird to have that piece of history preserved in such like a real time feel. You know what I mean? Feels like a little time capsule. And then like some of these things that he was talking about, it's like, okay, we are past those parts now. And thank goodness, because that was not fun. But also he is reviewing like all of these different things that are just amazing in life and sucky in life. And it's just the way I just love John Green, okay? And I love the way that he looks at the world. Like, I just love it. And the way he thinks about things. Isn't that specific? But yeah. I think my favorite ones are, he reviews Canada Geese, 0 stars from me, and Super Mario Kart, and Wintry Mix, the QWERTY keyboard, scratch and sniff stickers, Diet Dr. Pepper. So there are things like that. And if you haven't read this, I would definitely recommend it. It is just a treat. It's like a hug that also makes you think, which isn't a good metaphor, but whatever. I read a book in one day that I got for Christmas from Chris. Christopher gave me books for Christmas. Wonderful. He's a good egg. This was one of the books he gave me for Christmas. Everything is Okay by Debbie Tongue. And this is her newest book. And it is about her journey through mental health issues. And so depression and anxiety specifically. But yeah, so the first part is kind of hard to read because it's like her going through it, but like it's her going through it and then getting out on the other side. So like it gets better. Everything is okay. And dang, like this just reminds me, makes me thankful, I guess, that part, because that was something I used to struggle a lot with, was depression and anxiety. Still anxiety a little bit. It's managed now. But depression and anxiety a lot when I was a teenager / young woman. And yeah, just that part of my life is not, like, I'm not struggling with that anymore. I feel so good. And yeah, it was actually kind of tough to read a little bit. I was like, oh dang, yeah, I remember that. But yeah, so I mean, if you're a little bit sensitive about reading about mental health issues, don't read it. But if you want to be encouraged that it gets better, go ahead. And yeah, it's just really nice. And I like her art style. And it's good. I don't know what else to tell you. That is gonna fall. And then I read this book, which I picked up on a whim from Book Outlet, and it was a good purchase. So this is Good Tidings of Great Joy. It's excuse me. Who published it? It is published by Thomas Nelson. And what this book is they've taken basically maybe most of the parts of the Bible that have to do with the Christmas story, and then they've compiled them in here as like one narrative, like without the chapter breaks and verses and stuff, but it is just the words from the Bible. And like they have like, you know, the prophecies from Isaiah and stuff, they like weave it into the pertinent part of like Luke or whatever, I don't know. In the back it has all of the, oh yeah, like from here's a page where you go from Matthew to Zephaniah to Matthew again. Yeah, where's the one? Yeah, here's one. It's like Isaiah to Luke. It was great to read the Christmas story from this. It's also a beautiful book. They have beautiful illustrations in here. I'm like, it's just gorgeous. I'm not sure what the chapters are. They have chapters, but I don't know. Or like this one. Oh man, it's just beautiful. And then in the back they have, you can write down who read the Christmas story and what year. And then you can write down, there's 1 page for Christmas memories. Oh, 2 pages. And then some hymns or carols in the back. So this was beautiful, and I would totally recommend it if it's still on Book Outlet. Pick it up for reading of the Christmas story next year. Or, you know, read it now. You can read it whenever you want. Now, contemporary. We're almost done. We are almost done. I am almost done. All right. I read The Love Letters of the Angels of Death by Jennifer Quist. And this book completely surprised me. Did I love it? Yeah, I loved it. This was a while ago. I need to remember, did I love it or not? But I did. And this is basically a story of a marriage. And it is a marriage of people that love each other. And what I really need to read more of and just crave is books about a marriage, but the marriage is not the conflict of the book, which is rare. It's usually people fighting in the marriage, and I want books where the couple is good and they are facing other things. What I would actually love to read, if anyone knows of a book like this, like fantasy, where a couple is like fighting bad guys and overthrowing the empire together. That would be amazing. So this book follows a couple, and it's like different. It's the husband telling he's telling his wife about their marriage, framed around different deaths of people in their life. So, which is an interesting structure, but it worked really well. Like the framing device is like people they know that have died, like his mom and her grandma, I think, and like other people. But anyways, and yeah, it was amazing. The writing was amazing. The characters were amazing. It took me a little bit to get warmed up to them, but then I was like in love with them, and then I ripped through it, and then the ending was just, it was a good ending. Maybe not happy, but it was good. Anyway, so I really like that book. I read it because of Rick McDonnell. He talked about it, and then Aaron gave it to me for my birthday, I think, or Christmas one time. So thanks, Aaron. It was good. But yeah, I would really recommend that one, and it's can lit, so also good. Okay. Then this is one of the most unique reading experiences I've ever had. And it will only be unique for a handful of people. No, it will be unique for everyone, only be relatable for a handful of people. So I read Once Removed by Andrew Unger, and he is a local author. So what makes this book a unique reading experience for me is this is the first time that I have culturally related to the main character, because my culture is weird. So if you want to understand me and my environment, no, what am I talking about? Me and like where I live. Read this. So we follow the main character who he lives in a Mennonite town, and he works for the city, Parks and Rec, and he also does ghostwriting for family books, which this is such a Mennonite thing. Family books, genealogies. People just are always compiling their genealogies and making a book that's like this fat. And it is so bizarre. No one else does this. If I wanted to, I could sit down and I could trace my history back to at least the 1800s, maybe 17s. I don't know. But then our main character, he starts getting fired from these projects that he has. And just the way that he gets fired is just so hilarious. And it's just so passive-aggressive Mennonite. It's amazing. One of the ways he gets fired, my favorite way, is the lady that he's writing the book for leaves a ice cream pail of muffins on his front step, and at the bottom of the pail is the note that says that he's fired, which he doesn't discover until he's done eating the muffins a few days later, which is just the most Mennonite thing I can think of. It's so accurate. Like, I'm gonna bless you with these muffins, but you're also fired. So, and it just, the way that this book feels, it feels kind of like, kind of like Schitt's Creek, Corner Gas, like mixed together with, like, there's this, like, and then there's like this sinister undercurrent, and it's satire, and it is just, I actually really love this book for the fact that I related to the main character, and also I thought it was really well written and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, if you want to know what it's like to live here, then you can read this and you will know. Because, and there's like, there's a scene like right at the beginning, he's talking about where he's meeting someone that he's working for at a restaurant that's above a mechanic's garage. We used to have, it's not there anymore. We used to have a car dealership at the corner of Main Street, and upstairs in the car dealership there was a restaurant. And so he's talking about eating in the restaurant above the mechanic's garage, and he's looking outside and he's watching two like traditional Mennonites wearing their head coverings with their long dresses, but they're on rollerblades. And that is accurate. So right from there I was hooked. So it's just good. Okay. Hi. I knew I was going to talk about that one a long time because it was just so exciting for me. Okay. I read 2 Sophie Kinsella books. These are rereads. The Undomestic Goddess, which is standalone, follows a woman who's a lawyer, screws up really bad at work, runs away, and through miscommunications, a comedy of errors, she becomes a housekeeper for this rich couple that live in like a little village. And she doesn't know how to do anything. She doesn't know how to iron a shirt. So it is hilarious and sweet. So Sophie Kinsella, you know, I enjoy her books. And then I reread book number 2 in the Shopaholic series. Shopaholic Takes Manhattan. Becky Bloomwood Goes to Manhattan. I think that's all you need to know. Okay, I read People We Made on Vacation by Emily Henry. So I read this in the summertime. It is about a lady and her best friend, who's a man, go on a vacation together, hijinks ensue. I like Emily Henry, but her books are, I feel a little bit alone in this these days, just based on when I talk to other people about books. Like not on BookTube, but like in real life. Her books are pretty steamy, and I try not to read steamy books, or like the steamy scenes anyways, but then like everyone that I talk to in real life, they're like purposely reading those books, and I'm like, okay, I am alone. But anyway, so if you like that, you will like this book. If you don't like that, give it a pass. 3 more books only. Okay, good. Okay, so I listened to, on audiobook, very randomly, a book that I saw at Chapters one time, added it to my Goodreads. Then I saw the audiobook on Scribd or Libby, can't remember. And I listened to it and it was amazing. So that was No Good Asking by Fran Kimmel. So it's set right before Christmas. So this would be a good Christmas book. Set just before Christmas, in a small town. And is he a sheriff or chief of police or something? I think he's just stepped down from that position, from the police force, but he is going home and he sees the neighbor girl just like wandering out in a field, not properly dressed. And so he goes to pick her up and realizes that she is not safe at home with her stepdad. So he basically takes her, what is the term for that? But he takes her out of her stepdad's home and brings her into his home for Christmas. And then after Christmas, the foster care services will be able to place her in a foster home. And so it's following them as his family, as they're adjusting to this girl joining their home. And it was just so heartwarming and just such a delightful story. And just the way that her presence like livened up their home and brought new, just like fresh life into the family dynamics and everything. And it was just a really good book. And so it is a shame that it's not popular, but I would really recommend it if you want to read a story about family. It was really good. And then the ending was just so sweet. It was just so good. I would really recommend it. Penultimate book. Oh, I'm tired of sitting here. The Bronte Plot by Catherine Ray. So we follow our main character, works at a decor boutique, and she handles like the acquisitions of the vintage books and such. Vintage store. Yeah, it's like a vintage store, boutique, design studio, all those things. Anyways, and she meets this guy and they start dating, and then they break up because he finds out something about her. But then his grandma, after they've broken up, his grandma comes to her and she's like, I want to go to England and I want to do shopping and stuff and acquire things for my family, like expensive things. I don't know. I don't remember now. That sounds stupid. She wants to like visit these antique places and, buy silverware for this granddaughter and buy books for this son and things like that. So they go on this trip to England together with her ex's grandma, and so that's kind of where things start. And I really liked the dynamic between her and the grandma and their relationship and things that happen there and the locations. At one point they end up in the town where the Brontes lived, the Bronte Plot, and then they end up there for a while. And just like the setting and the atmosphere was like, holy, now I need to read some Bronte books. Also, I want to go there because it sounds moody and gloomy and delightful. That's my favorite, moody and gloomy weather. And so I enjoyed it. At first I did not like the main character at all. Lucy is her name. Didn't like her, but then she grew on me and she matured throughout the book, and then I liked her at the end. Last book. Listen to the audiobook of Christmas at Harrington's by Melody Carlson, who I used to read so much when I was a teenager. Melody Carlson. But yeah, this was also, I listened to the audiobook because it was on Scribd, but I had the Kindle book like forever ago, downloaded for free. So that's why I picked it up, and it was good. It was like 4 hours, so not very long. And we follow a woman who's just been released from jail after being in jail for a few years, 5 years or so, 4 years. I don't know. And she's going to start a new life in a new town, and she's going to, just get settled in, get a job, and hopefully just move on and start life over again. But yeah, so she moves to this little town and just hoping to stay anonymous. That's kind of where we get started, and we just follow her meeting new people, like people in her town, and, you know, making new friends and stuff, and adjusting to life outside of jail again, and adjusting to a different life than the one she had before she went to jail. Did she go to jail because of something she did or something she was framed for? Well, you guess. But yeah, it was a sweet book. Yeah, I enjoyed it. So, holy cow, that was it. That's it. That's all the books that I read. And now I've caught you up on everything that I've read. And it's December 29th, and I'm unlikely to finish anything before the end of the year. I've been trying to finish one book, and I have just over 100 pages left, and I could do it, but very unlikely that I will. Gosh, it's like an hour. I'm so sorry that it's an hour long. If anyone watches this all the way through, please tell me. Leave a Christmas tree emoji if you watch it all the way through. I hope you all had a good Christmas, if that's something that you do. And I hope you have a good, happy new year, and that you enjoy the festivities, the rest of the festive season. What else? I don't know. Whatever. Fill in the blanks. Write a comment about whatever you want. And I need to go have some water now, I think. So, thanks for watching. I hope that you have a wonderful day and a happy new year. And until next time, which hopefully won't be too long if I don't get sick again, so long, and thanks for all the fish.